Hello, welcome to another episode of Field of Screams podcast. Today we'll be reviewing VHS 94. So after VHS Viral, man, that was a tough one to get through. I had hope for VHS 94 and it did deliver. It did feel more of a back to basics. There was some very good segments in this. I kind of like the connecting segment, the glue segment, if you will. And we're going to talk about these segments, so let's just jump right into it. The first segment we're going to start to is Holy Hell. That is the connecting glue segment. It is a SWAT team that is going into this complex because apparently there's some drug they have to bust. In the SWAT team, they go in there and they find all these people. They gouged out their eyes. It is pretty gnarly. And I loved it because it felt like we were back in the VHS universe, unlike the last movie we reviewed. I thought this segment, I liked Slater. I liked the little radio when they talked in. Slater's constantly giving orders like, we're going to take the lead. We better find some drugs in here. Like, he's constantly screaming in the radio. I think the banter's pretty funny. I enjoyed it. And I thought the little segments where they're cutting in and out and they're just exploring this old abandoned place and, they're finding all of these people. They're finding everyday people, the owner of the video store. He's sitting there with his eyes pulled out. That's creepy stuff. I mean, really any of these segments that are in this connecting segment, they are a lot scarier than any segment in VHS Viral, 100%. It's darker, and again, it feels like it's connected to VHS 1 and VHS 2, which is a very good thing, because those two movies had a good thing going for it. The very end of the connecting segment, where the two girls, they're in on it. I think they tie up Slater, my favorite officer. They tie him up, and they end up doing this big reveal, like, oh, it was never drugs in the first place. It was these videos. These videos are what are making people pull out their eyeballs. And he's like, no. And these girls are dressing down until they're all in white. And I think they say the statement of, we are the final girls and you are our final kill. And then they bash in his face with the video camera. It was a little corny. But that's okay. I liked it. Again, I liked it. I was very fearful after VHS Viral. I'm like, man, I really hope we're not just doing random things. Please just put me in a dark warehouse again, where VHS 1 and VHS 2, kind of took place. I want that feel when I watch those movies. And this segment delivered on that. It puts you back in that realm, all right, put on your seatbelt, because we are back where we started. So have fun. So yeah, let's talk about these other segments we got here. The first segment we're going to talk about is Storm Drain, which this is a very popular segment in this movie. I've seen people reference Ratma before, and here we are. This is a news reporter. She goes into this storm drain because people disappear anytime they go near it. This was a good segment. The anticipation was great. You wondered what she was going to find. And there's even a moment where her and her cameraman and her crew, they find this one dude who's just covered in this black material. You don't know if it's dirt, poop, whatever. He looks very smelly. He's not talking right. He looks insane. When they smile and the black stuff comes out of their mouth, it is a very gnarly image, something I hope to never see in everyday life. Very, very great leading up to the creature of Ratma. But then you get the creature itself, the Ratma creature, which I think it melted off a dude's face. Pretty good stuff. Then they put the female reporter right underneath it, and this nasty stuff is leaking out of its mouth, and she's crying / screaming. You feel bad for her. You're oh, this is disgusting. Should have never went to the storm drain, but the scary movie stuff, they're gonna go there and they're gonna face repercussions. That sounds weird when I say it, but I already said it. But yeah, it cuts from that, and it's kind of funny. It cuts to a vegetable smasher. I don't know if this was a reference to the slap chop, or other stuff like that. Yeah, it was kind of weird, but I was like, oh, okay, I'll take it. And then it cuts to the news, and it's kind of funny how so the news anchor who's a dude, he's talking and he's like, "Oh, our my female anchor, like they finally found her in the storm drain, and she wasn't doing too well." And they immediately like cut to her like getting out of the storm drain, and she's like in shock. Does not look well at all. Does not look like a moment that she would want to be filmed. But yet they did it, and they like broadcast it out to the world. And they're like, "Oh, and by the way, the camera died. We couldn't find him. Hopefully we find him soon." And then they cut to the girl. She's back after showing a traumatizing clip. And it's kind of like, oh, like this news corporation, they're kind of douchebags for doing this to her. But then it's just funny the way it ends. Like she like vomits the black stuff in the dude's face, and his face is like melting off, and he's like, and like blood's like shooting out, and she just kind of smiles, and she's like, "All hail Ratma." Um, Perfect way to open up this movie. You needed a rebound after the old Dante stuff the last movie was doing. You kidding me? We need to bring Ratma in here, the heavyweight boxer, to show how it's done again, and that's exactly what they did. The next segment we're going to talk about is called The Empty Wake. This segment it's very simple. This girl, she's working for like a funeral home. She has to watch over this casket until like family members get there, and they know a gigantic storm's about to blow in. The guys are teasing her. They're like, "Oh, the dude looks pretty messed up. You can go ahead and take a peek if you want." And then they like leave her all alone, and it's like all dark because either the storm clouds are covering up the sky or it's almost nighttime. But like she's also playing like the creepy funeral home music. I don't know if it's just me, and I don't think it is. Funeral homes are just a creepy atmosphere. You go to a funeral home, it's usually never for a good reason. Usually someone's passed away. It's usually very sad. It's very off. The process of funerals itself, I feel like it could just, it feels unworldly, if that's the right word. Like, it's just like, there's moments in your life to where you go to this building, and every time you go to this building, it's a sad occasion, or that someone has died. And again, it just gives like sad, dreary feelings in general when you go to this. So when this movie, starts with this girl going to the funeral home, and she has to sit there all alone, and outside it's dark, and the lights keep shutting off because of the storm. Very creepy atmosphere. Some people think this segment lingers too long. I think it's effective. I'm a fan of Paranormal Activity. I will watch people just chill in a bed until something drops, and I think that's fantastic. I enjoy those types of movies. So this segment did not bother me. Even if you think this segment's quite boring, though, I think the payoff is pretty good, where the dead body, the zombie or the possessed zombie, gets out of the casket and starts to pursue her. The lights go off. There's a lot. Wow, I can't talk. There's a lot of just anxiety filling this segment here. Like, it's just dark. Again, it gives me Paranormal Activity vibes. When the corpse like lunges at her, like it's pretty scary stuff. But it ends in a very cool way with a storm basically tearing apart the building, like a tornado rolls through right as the zombie like reaches her, and then it shows her like slowly get up, and the zombie's just laying there. I've seen some speculation that whenever she gets up all slow, that maybe the demon or spirit passed into her, but I don't know. I like to just think that she was attacked by a zombie but was saved by a tornado, which just destroyed the entire building, and she just slowly walks off, and she'll have to explain to the owners on why the funeral home was destroyed. But yeah, again, I think it's a pretty good second segment. They had a good lead-off hitter, and I think this one followed pretty solidly. The next segment I'm going to talk about is the subject. Now, I'm going to be a bit nitpicky with this one. I think there's good things, and I think there's bad things here. The subject is about, basically like this mad scientist has a like robot, cyborg, whatever you want to call it. But it's clear that she has like feelings. She's trying to figure out her purpose. And while you're experiencing that, a SWAT team like raids the building, and like this cyborg has to start like fighting them off. She's got like a gun for an arm. It's pretty cool via idea. I think during these fight sequences, because let's be honest, like this whole thing's just like one massive fight sequence. So if you're into that, that's awesome. And some of the parts were very cool. Some of the parts had me cracking up. The one thing I would just critique is just kind of the graphics of it all. I think there's sometimes it looks like the graphics were almost from like a PlayStation 2 video game. Maybe I'm being a bit mean here, but I did just kind of feel that way. It gave video game vibes. I wish it looked a little more realistic, but I mean, what can you do? There's a lot of gunfights in this. There's a part where like her gun runs out of bullets and she switches to like a grenade launcher, fires into a dude's stomach and he blows up. There's another cyborg that just like wreaks havoc. And she does meet a human that like likes her, or maybe he acts like he likes her because he's scared. And he's like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "To live." And he's like, "Me too." But then that evil cyborg kind of like ruins that and like basically kills him. And I mean, like, it's just kind of there's some heartfelt moments. Like, the cyborg looks into the mirror and is like almost appalled by the sight of her. Because, she kind of feels like she's a human, or she's like a human that's not put into a robot's body. That's a hard thing to swallow. And there's parts like you feel for it. If there's any negatives, it would have to be the graphics. The good parts, is when the cyborg slash human put into a robot is displaying those emotions and, like the dialogue it has. And, when she has that moment with the one soldier where they both just want to live, but, he gets massacred up. So she takes out that big cyborg. Some of the fight scenes are fun. There's just a lot of bullets being sprayed everywhere. This one was okay for me. It's not as good as the first two segments for me. It's just okay. It's fun. It goes on a long time, but it has good stuff in it, and I think they put a lot of work into this segment. So I mean, kudos to them. I feel like more effort was put into this segment than all the segments combined in VHS Viral. Yes, I'm still picking on that movie. I'm not a fan. So yeah, that's that segment. Let's talk about the last one. Now, I think all of these are pretty well paced because when you go to the funeral home segment, that's kind of slower. That ends with a big bang. The last segment we just talked about, that one's 100 miles per hour, like almost the entire time. And then we go to this last segment, which is called Terror, which is actually pretty good. I say actually pretty good. Most of these have been good. I don't know why I said actually. But I enjoyed this one, I feel like, for different reasons. This segment is basically about some nationalist terror group, domestic terror group. They somehow captured a vampire. And they take the cool idea of a vampire exploding when it touches sunlight, and they extend it to that this terrorist group was going to use the vampire, but the vampire blood, when it touches sunlight, it explodes like a bomb, which is just a crazy extension. And they're talking about these places that they're gonna bomb and all this stuff. It's showing them they're not a good group of people. They talk about doing stuff for Jesus and all that, but I mean, like, let's be real. Like, these are not good people. They're brainwashed. They're in a cult. But kind of the funny thing about this segment is like this cult kind of disposes themselves like because they're just kind of bumbling idiots. Now, granted, I'm guessing having a vampire is hard to keep track of, and I'm not one to criticize that, but just some of the mistakes they make. Every day, whenever the sunlight rises to when the vampire is like at its weakest point, like he kind of regenerated, they go and they shoot him in the head, and he drains all of his vampire blood, and they collect it. So this group is holding a lot of explosive vampire blood. And eventually one night, and it's funny, this group, like, whenever they do these little home videos and he's like trying to give like a pump up speech, like it's just like intentionally awkward, like, hey, come into frame here, come into frame, and the guy like slowly like walks into the frame and he tries to give this like big powerful corny speech. Like it's kind of funny to me. I felt like they were trying to make fun of these groups, which is a good thing to make fun of. But eventually, the cult leader was like, guys, we need to wait a day. So let's get wasted. And they immediately start drinking a bunch of alcohol. Well, two guys decide to start messing with the vampire. Um, what cracked me up, because the vampire goes missing, because I'm guessing they left the door open. One of the guys gets vampire blood all over him. So they're like calling names out and stuff. They're like, hey, come out here. And the guy covered in vampire blood like sprints out of the building and just explodes like a bomb. They're like, oh my gosh. And then another guy, he's like on this gigantic gun in the back of the truck. And he's like, we got to light up the whole barn. And he starts like spraying bullets everywhere, but loses control, shoots one of his own cult members. And then another cult member shoots him in the head because he's just out of control, freaking out. These guys are taking each other out left and right. The rest of the movie is them trying to, control and kill the vampire, which they fail miserably. There's one scene where the cult leader takes his gun, fires like 7 shots into the attic, and he's like, it's clear, go ahead and go. The guy starts going up the ladder, and then the vampire just goes down, bites the dude in the face, and he's dead. And the cult leader's like, let me take a couple more shots, then we'll go up. He takes like 5 more shots. Then he's like, we had to hit him now. And then he goes up. The vampire takes care of them relatively easy. Then by the end, the vampire commits suicide by opening up the shades, and all the vampire blood just explodes. So everything explodes. I don't know, like it was a nice little ending. It was a nice little change up. It felt very different. And it was a very interesting idea for them to pursue. So I will give credit to them. With me kind of wrapping up the segment, because again, I liked it. I liked all the segments. I criticized the third one a little bit. And I criticized the ending of the connecting segment a little bit. But I mean, overall, it was pretty solid. It's also nice to get 4 segments again and not 3 segments plus 1 bonus segment that didn't follow the rules and didn't do found footage as an extra. It's glad we got all 4 segments this time. And all 4 segments, they stayed with the theme. They were found footage. None of the stuff that went on in the last film. So this was a nice bounce back for the franchise. I'm excited to get these movies rolling again. The viral had me very worried. Those worries are now gone. So we'll see how the next one goes. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. Do you think it's a nice bounce back? If you don't like it, tell me why. If you like it, tell me why. Tell me what your favorite segments are. Just tell me in the comments. That's always nice to hear. If you're still listening, feel free to give me a like. It helps out the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And until next time, guys, let's see the next VHS movie. Let's go. All hail King Ratma.